From Relay, this is Upgrade, episode number 631. That's a big number. It is brought to you this time by Factor, Squarespace, and Backblaze. I am your regular host, Jason Snell, but I'm reading the introduction, which means Mike Hurley is gone on assignment. We did an episode out of time last week. This week we are doing an episode in time, and joining me just in time is our special guest host this week, Dan Moren. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Jason. I was ready to be introduced as your irregular co-host.
Although
Well,
you are...
I am.
I don't know. I don't want to judge.
Not on this show.
I don't want to judge. Yeah, we do the Six Colors podcast almost every Friday, and if you have to be a member to do this, to become a member of Six Colors, and you get to hear us every Friday. Except for last Friday where we were both traveling, and the promise was that we would come on Upgrade instead and give everybody a whole episode of us talking about stuff.
As the prophecy has foretold.
Yeah.
Here we are.
As far as I know, Mike is like in the air right now, and if not, he will
Hopefully
soon be in the air. He is flying
in a plane.
home. I don't know, maybe a hot air balloon. We'll see.
Right.
And of course, this is the summer of fun.
Summer of fun!
Summer of fun! And what's more fun than Apple financial results? Those are coming up later on the show. Well, it's fun if you're Apple, I guess.
Super fun. I mean, and lucrative. No less fun for us.
Less fun for others. I suppose that's true. Okay, so let's start.
There's
with
no
a
time
little
for
bit.
any of this, Jason.
We don't, because it's time for Snell Talk. Do you want to read the Snell Talk question to me?
I would love to read the Snell Talk question. This is from Will. Will says, Jason, on Upgrade Plus recently, you recommended a plethora of TV shows. By the way, Will, extra credit for the word plethora. Great word.
Yep.
Plethora of TV shows. And then you also talk about all the books you read, both for Designed in California and for fun, as well as all the work for all the various writing and recording you do. How do you actually have time to do all of these things?
I love these questions, and I'm glad that you got to ask it, because part of my answer I think is near and dear to your heart, and then I'm going to turn the tables on you.
Okay.
For Design in California, I am not reading all the books. Because I have a database full of the text of all the books, and I can search around and I can find the relevant chapters for the story I'm trying to tell.
Mm-hmm.
But there are books that I do read, and I have to put them in my book reading queue. But I do read a lot of books. So I just finished a book last night on the plane coming home. I love reading books. I do read a very large number of books by some people's standards, although there are other people we know, Dan, who read way more books than we do. Scott McNulty.
Yeah.
Fred Quiche. Yep. I think he reads like a book a day or something. It's just wild, these people who read. So I guess I see how people see me when I say I read like 80 books. They're like, how is that possible? It's like, well, here's my pat answer, but it's true. I don't play games. I think that's the real answer. Is I listen to my friends talk about the games they're playing, and the thing, like our dear friend Tony Sindelar,
Yes.
was just having a conversation about the new Lego Batman game.
Yes.
And he said that he 100%ed it. He did every single thing in it. It's a massive
That's a big game. It's a very big
game. And that was when at that moment where I was like, yeah, see, I like video games fine, but I am one of those people who it's going to be very hard for me to commit to playing a video game for I'm not going to play a video game for 30 hours. It's just never going to happen. So I really like those, what John Siracusa calls the artsy fartsy games that are like 5. Like I did Hurdling, which Panic published, which is a Journey. It's kind of like Journey vibes a little bit, and I think it was a total of about 5 hours.
Yeah, it's a little longer than watching a movie. It's like a mini series.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a time commitment I could do. I wouldn't do it regularly. I mean, we watch a lot of movies and TV, and I read a lot of books. And that kind of covers it. And so it's very hard for me to find time. Also, I really try to prioritize stuff I can do with Lauren when when she's home and I'm home and it's our entertainment time. And there are games that you can play. I think we just handed off the controller for Hurdling. And there's some games I was reading about. Was it Big Walk? Panic. It's from the people who did Untitled Goose Game.
Just a review of it this morning, I think, in The Verge, because I sent it to my wife saying this could be our next game.
And I looked at that and I thought, well, that, even though it's a very long, open-ended game, it's a co-op game.
Yep.
and that's part for me. That's part of it too. Is it is stuff we can do together. Like we played Journey together, and it was the same thing. We like with hurdling, we just handed the controller back and forth for various levels. So I watched half the levels and played half the levels, but it was great. So I don't know how my turning the tables question is, how do you find time to do all the stuff you do and play games? And you've got a little kid. How, Dan? How is it possible? See, I'm taking Will's side here now.
Oh, how the turntables have turned.
Yes.
I don't play that many games. I think I view games as kind of fungible with like TV for me in terms of a thing that I often do, like when I'm like there's TV shows I watch with my wife, and there's TV shows I watch by myself because she's not interested. And there's games that I play with my wife, and there's games I play by myself because she's not interested. Like you, I really enjoy doing co-op games with my wife. We played Baldur's Gate 3. We put in like 120 hours on that game.
Wow.
And that's because for like several months, it was our largely instead of watching TV thing. Like we put our kid to bed. We have like an hour, maybe two to like stay up before we go to bed. And that was like what we did. You know, we sit down and we play the game for a couple hours, and we worked our way through the entire game. It was super fun. But it was interesting. I was having this conversation with some of the people that we were hanging out with on vacation last week, because a lot of them are married couples, a little bit younger than some of them have kids, some of them don't. And so we were discussing that. And there's a lot of people who are like, you know, my partner is not interested in playing video games. And so that's a thing that I do by myself. And I think it really just depends on what people are interested in. I don't play that many games. I've been playing there was a recent James Bond game called First Light, which I've played a bunch of, but haven't finished. And it's just because I got busy and I just don't have that much time to like spend. I like break it up. Like I do like hour chunks here and there. I don't sit down and play a 30-hour game, you know, in 30 hours.
Sure.
that would be real bad.
Madness. Yeah. Don't do that.
But like before that, I was playing Ghost of Yotei, which is a sequel to like a samurai game on the PS5. And it's a very long game. And I was like picking away at it. I played it for months. And then I just got like to a point of being, I'm just tired and I need something else. And then I've started playing the James Bond game. It's like, I'll go back to it at some point. But I had put so much time into it because I feel like I get like Tony, get very detail oriented. Like I'm going to check off all these boxes. But yeah, it's a thing I do instead of watching TV. If like my wife is just, you know, I'm going to watch this show that I'm into, or she's doing some work or something like that, that'll be my like, I'll burn an hour playing this game. But I don't read nearly as many books as you do. So I probably read about half as many books as you do. So, you know.
You write more books than I do, though, so that's good.
Probably do, yes.
I will also say, you know, we do podcasts here in the evenings. And so Lauren watches a bunch of stuff that I don't watch because she's got shows she has as her, like, when I'm in here doing a podcast, she's watching that show. But there's so much good TV on, it's also very hard to, like, I feel like we have an enormous backlog of good TV shows right now.
That's the biggest challenge too, because my wife gets very like she runs hot and cold on like shows. She'll get really into it and we'll do nothing but like binge a show and then still taper off. So like we still have the last half of last season of Silo.
Wow.
And I'm just like, we should just finish this because the new season's coming out.
We just blasted through the whole season of Silo because I got to have the screeners, and that was like that picked up speed as it went, where we were like watching one every night.
We finally last night, again, after a week of vacation, so we were hanging out with people and stuff, we weren't really watching TV. We finally watched the season opener of Strange New Worlds last night. Which is like a week and a half old. I'm like, my God, a Star Trek show I haven't watched in like a week and a half. This is wild.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, we do live in a world where there are so many entertainment options, and there's only so much time in the day. And the other thing I was going to say to Will is my other big time hole is that I'm a sports fan.
Yeah, I don't have that. I escape on that front.
Yeah, and like the Giants are having a terrible year this year, but like when the Giants are having a good year, you know, a baseball game is like 3 hours long, 2.5 hours long. And if I want to sit down, and I enjoy sitting down and watching a baseball game, but you know, that blows a hole in your evening right there. Like that's what you're doing that evening. Is you're not reading a book, you're not watching a TV show, you're watching a baseball game for the whole time.
The Red Sox were having a real bad season, and then
they turned it around.
Something happened. So
that didn't happen. The Giants are just trading all their players and they're done. But and I have not the funny thing is it's actually kind of optimal in a way where back in 2021, the Giants won like 107 games, and like that was such an entertaining season, and we watched so many games that year because it was so entertaining. The good news is when the product is bad, you get your time back.
Yeah, don't watch. Yeah, I
so
mean,
it's kind of nice.
We watched a bunch of World Cup games, as I know you did. So that was also like a time limit. And we did the Olympics earlier this year, too. So like it's got like there's time limited events, too, sometimes that come up. And yeah, that eats a hole as well.
Yeah. Sports can really be, and I'm a college football fan in the fall and the baseball playoffs. I'll absolutely, but I mean, the baseball playoffs really do kind of capture us for a month where it's a lot less likely to watch stuff. And the World Cup was a lot of fun. Being a Premier League fan in the U.S. is actually nice because it's all like on weekend mornings, so it doesn't interfere with the rest of my life. But yeah, so that eats up time too. So there's lots of places it goes. But I feel like the one that is a thing that I theoretically would like to do, but I never do, is play video games because I have bought so many video games and consoles and over the years, and yet I never use even like 4% of them.
Yeah. I have a Switch 2 that I got for Christmas, and I haven't played it in months because there's just no time.
Yeah.
Like there's other stuff.
Yeah, I have a Switch 2, and I've actually bought a couple of games for us to play on the Switch 2, and we still haven't played them yet, but maybe sometime. I don't know. Well, thank you, Will, for your question. And if you want to go to upgradefeedback.com and leave a Snell Talk question, of course, you can do that too. By just going to the website I just mentioned. That's how that works. It's the internet. Come on. I remember the first time I saw a URL on a billboard. It was in the 90s, driving up 101 in San Francisco. The place where it's all like the mind-blowing AI billboards now.
Yep.
And somebody, I don't even remember what it was, but somebody had maybe it was like Yahoo or something, but it was like somebody had a URL on a billboard, and I was like, what is happening? And now I realized that literally
QR codes on billboards.
Yeah, well, and it's also like literally, would you like this completely basic thing? Go to a website. Like there's no talking to people. There's no phone numbers anymore, and there's nothing. It's just, or it's scan this QR code. Would you like to order food at this airport restaurant? Scan the
Jason,
QR code.
I drove from Boston to Delaware last week, and when you are driving through New Jersey, like the New York, New Jersey area, Connecticut too, there is the genre of like legal injury billboard is insane.
That's the one thing about the weird AI billboards in the Bay Area, especially in San Francisco and down the Silicon Valley, like the 101 corridor. The nice thing about it is a real break from the law firms. Oh my God. It's real break.
Many.
Although we have all these weird electronic billboards in the East Bay when I'm driving to Oakland, which I do pretty frequently. We have all these electronic billboards. They rotate. They're giant screens, and sometimes they get like all fancy and they're like, oh, we're the official law firm of the Giants. Here's the Giants score, or we're the official law firm of the 49ers. Here's the 49ers score, which is fun that they can do that when the game is going on. Although I did see a billboard the other day that was for somebody who was it was like, Bay Area, get excited, the World Cup is coming to the Bay Area, and it said it's coming in minus 38 days.
No one was ready to release that billboard, I guess.
And I keep thinking, what was the catastrophic chain of events that led to that screen being shown? And I kind of feel like it was like underneath a layer of a bunch of other stuff that timed out. And so it ended up being visible when obviously nobody ever intended it to be visible 2 months after the World Cup.
I also just really have to share this. This is not from this most recent trip, but I think last year's trip. Some lawyer got Christopher McDonald to be on his billboard, which in like Connecticut or something. And
doing a Happy Gilmore.
Yes, and I
riff.
kept passing all of these billboards. I'm like, I hope he got paid real well.
I bet he did.
I bet he did.
Or it's
also,
his niece.
The absurdity, the absurdity of Christopher McDonald is like, yeah, sure, I'll do a billboard thing. Like,
yeah,
this will sell.
Hey,
this will sell people.
I want to. I since I love the show Hacks, I want to see him on a casino billboard. That's what I want.
You know what? Connecticut,
more Christopher McDonald.
You can see that
anywhere. Also, he was on Star Trek, and nobody should forget that. He usually plays a cad, but he was actually a sweet guy on that Next Generation episode. All right, let's move on to a little bit of follow up, just a little bit. This is the segment, Dan, when you don't have to take any of the blame because you weren't here when we did this.
Yeah, I didn't do nothing.
Dave wrote in. We were talking about the iPhone upgrade program, which we're going to talk about on this show. Oh boy, are we! Because I got somebody here who's in the program.
Hello.
So we'll get to that. But Dave wrote in and said, "I have great news for the guy." We had a person who wrote in who's using Mint Mobile but thinks he can't join the iPhone upgrade program. Now the bad news is the iPhone upgrade program can no longer be joined. But the good news is that Dave uses Mint and is on the upgrade program. And now, literally, Dave points out on this upgrade program as well, by picking a T-Mobile phone because Mint is owned by T-Mobile and is an MVNO T-Mobile, and it may be that that's the case. This is not news you can use, though, unfortunately, because the upgrade program is being discontinued, and we will talk about that in a little bit, because there's things happening there, and I think Dan has feelings about it.
I do.
But before we do that, I would like to tell you about our first sponsor. This episode of Upgrade is brought to you by Factor. The summer of fun is in full swing. Travel is in full swing. Dan was traveling. I was traveling. Mike is traveling. There's so much travel going on. Factor can make it easy for your eating routine to get back on track. They make chef-crafted, dietitian-designed, ready-to-eat meals so you don't have to choose between real food and convenience. They have over 175 banned ingredients. That's right. They will not put those ingredients in your meal. So it's designed around what supports a healthier lifestyle, and they take out all the stuff that doesn't support that. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes and require no prep and no cleanup. So even on the days your schedule is completely out of control, eating well is absolutely achievable. There are over 100 nutrient-dense menu items to choose from every single week. New options recently added: salmon burgers, shredded pork, collard greens, and more. Add-ons that you'll crave, like pumpkin-flavored cheesecakes and protein shakes. 97% of users, as a customer sat figure, everybody, agree that Factor meals help them live a healthier life, so you can feel confident that you're doing something good for yourself with every meal. Now, I when I get Factor meals here, my wife steals them and takes them to work with her, which is great because she works in an office. I have a whole kitchen to use any day, but she doesn't. So she steals them, and we bought them for my mom too because we were worried about her nutrition. She was didn't really want to cook for herself, and so we bought her a bunch of Factor meals. And they couldn't be easier. And I think there's no better endorsement than the fact that my wife steals my Factor meals from me, because there's a lot of stuff we get for podcasts where she's like, whatever, you and your podcast, but not the Factor meals. She steals them. Head to factormeals.com/upgrade50off and use the code upgrade50off to get 50% off and one free breakfast item per box for 1 year while supplies last until Halloween. That's code upgrade50off at factormeals.com, factormeals.com, upgrade50off at factormeals.com. See the website for more details. Thank you to Factor for supporting Upgrade and all of Relay. Rumor Roundup time, Dan.
Yeehaw!
Thank you. Very nice. Very nice. Mark Gurman, the sheriff of Rumortown, is back with more. And we had 2 weeks of Mark Gurman, so that's
Double
good
Gurman.
because this week was pretty light.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, it was.
This week was pretty light. But last week, so he actually reported last week about the kind of onslaught of home tech. He's sort of resetting. He's reported a lot of this before, but kind of resetting what's going to happen this fall and maybe into early next year. He says the much rumored by him HomePod with a screen / home controller tablet product, whatever it is. I've seen some people call it the HomePad. Yep. I don't know what they're going to call it.
Who knows?
Could be coming this fall alongside a new Apple TV 4K and HomePod Mini. The idea being that they will all be upgraded so that they work with some version of Siri AI. Set to release, he says, the Apple TV and HomePod Mini this fall for sure, and the Home Hub between October and early next year. And of course, he's reported previously that the John Turnus era is fitting for all of this because John Turnus is one of the people who sort of like championed Apple pushing into the smart home. So we may finally be there. I actually keep picturing in my mind the idea of like a home event almost in October where they roll out their home strategy, because it feels like they've got a lot of the pieces here. They just have failed to put it together.
I wonder if they will. So if they release a new HomePod Mini and Apple TV and like kind of an event, and like, that in itself is maybe, a little sparse, but I wonder if they would tease this, HomePad or something there as well. Oh, like, well, they do that sometimes, right? They, especially things that require some developer buy-in, it might be like, hey, and next, month to early spring, we're going to ship this product that has a screen. I think there's an argument there that it might be a case where they pre-announce something to give a little more critical mass
Right.
to this whole genre.
Yeah.
Saying like, look, it's not just the HomePod Mini and the Apple TV. Look, that's fine, but neither
And
of
there's
those
no
are
news
big.
there.
Yeah, that's not a big tentpole product. That's with the screen. That's a big deal, especially if I'm very curious to see what the Siri AI integration is going to be, because we have a couple models right now in terms of things like, the phone versus right the watch. Does it run on the watch, or is it only run like sort of on the watch?
I mean, it's leaning hard on the iPhone that's attached to the watch.
Yeah. So there's a couple different possibilities, right? I can see something like a HomePod Mini following that same
Sure.
because it doesn't have the horsepower. Like, even if they upgrade the chip in it, it's not going to be a brand new chip for reasons.
Mhm.
And so you're going to need to sort of offload some of that computing. But fundamentally, the challenge is that you have these devices right now that are supposed to be entry points into your smart home, and they're not very smart. And if you start, like in September, people start getting Siri AI on their phones, and then they go to their HomePod and they're like, why is this thing so dumb? And that's a frustrating experience, because you have to remember which Siri you're talking to. And if you get used to, there's all these great new features that Siri AI can do and all this stuff it can do. And if your HomePod Mini still I found some web results for you, look at them on your iPhone, you're going to be annoyed.
Yeah, it is I think we called this a couple years ago when we thought there would be Apple Intelligence, and there wasn't really.
Yeah.
It was like Siri fragmentation, the idea that you've got smart Siri in some places and dumb Siri in other places. And I mean, what I want to say is you can't do that. Now, they can do it.
Yeah, it's unavoidable because everybody who owns a HomePod Mini, you're probably not getting. Sorry, your Siri stays dumb, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that they could do something as simple as simple. Okay, I'm overstating it, but like a software update that basically says, if there's a Siri AI capable device around, don't answer the question on the HomePod. Like, just don't do it. But I'm not sure that they can even do that.
I don't think so. Yeah.
And it's a way to sell new HomePods or whatever. Sure. I wonder about the Apple TV 4K, just because one of the advantages of having a product like that, they already use it as the home hub for automation and Thread or Matter and whatever else they're doing there. There's a lot of stuff that you can rely on an Apple TV for. I wonder if you've got devices that are incapable of doing Siri AI, I wonder if they bulk up the Apple TV 4K so that your other home devices don't necessarily have to go to your phone. They could go to your Apple TV, or maybe this new screen, this new HomePad or whatever you want to call it. That might also be another way to be one of those kind of controllers, because you want to have the problem with having everything go to your phone is, first off, different people have different phones and they will have different capabilities. And second, sometimes people leave.
Yeah. Yeah, I have this problem with, my wife and I you both use the HomePod Mini, and, sometimes it doesn't recognize one of the other, and it tells you like, oh, you have to go re-authenticate. Tell us once again who you are. And I think the Apple TV thing is really interesting too, because so we saw that price increase for it, and a lot of people speculated this is to sort of, adjust people before a new Apple TV comes out. And one of the ways they could justify that price tag, if they felt like they had to, was, okay, now it's got Siri AI and it does all this other ancillary stuff too.
Right.
It also helps compensate for the fact that tvOS 27 basically did not get any new features, right? Nothing really of note this year.
Not really.
And so that could help bulk up that product, because the people who have an Apple TV are going to be like, it's barely worth it to upgrade the software, much less buy a new box at this point. So, yeah, if you want to sell some more Apple TVs and some HomePod Minis, then you need to make them do something that they don't already do.
Right. The AI-enabled stuff might be a way to do that. I do wonder, I mean, Gurman said that this HomePad, for lack of a better word, is going to have some facial recognition, so or voice recognition features, so that you're going to be able to, the way he puts it, it might be plausibly more of a multi-user product, which is good, right? Like they've done some steps in this way where it's like voice recognition and things like that. But like, really, if you're in a house and you have personal information from various people, knowing which data source to access on a query, knowing which phone to look at, whatever it is, would make the product better. And it makes me think that maybe that product is also smarter than a HomePod. And if that's the case, then maybe, it's an alternative. You don't want an Apple TV. This thing will also be your hub. And there's a lot of skepticism about this product. And like when I'm on Mac Break Weekly, I definitely there's a lot of people who are like, why do you even need, why does there need to be another HomePod? And it's like, first off, having had an Echo Show and a Google Nest Home, whatever, the bar is not even, there's no bar. Those products are so terrible. David Pogue wrote a piece today on his Substack about how bad Alexa Plus is, by the way. That's hilarious, where he had to do all the things that Amazon says you should try, and it failed at all but like 4 of them. It's just amazing. And we'll see how Siri AI does with that too. But my point is that these other products with screens that let you do theoretically voice control and show some widgets and let you control things in your home, they're not in the Apple ecosystem, and they're bad. Yeah. So there's a real ripe opportunity there for people to have, even if it's just like pretty basic, like show me my photos and turn on these lights or adjust the thermostat or whatever. Like the bar is super low.
I see this whole category of products now, kind of like the terminal and things like that, where it's like, hey, here's your calendar and it's on your fridge or whatever. Here's some photos. I just saw another one today. Skylight, I think, is one. Anyways, it's the idea of having a screen that shows stuff that's like visual information that people in your household need to refer to. And it's maybe a smaller market, but it is a market. There are all these products that have cropped up to do this kind of thing. And the advantage of Apple doing it himself is it lowers the barrier to entry, right? A lot of those products are like setting it up is going to be kind of
very
technical.
Nerdy.
You're going to have to jump through some hoops, etc. Whereas if Apple approaches it with its usual Apple system, it's like, you plug it in, you wave your phone near it or something, and you're basically done probably. Yeah. So I think there's a lot there. And I think, the promise of all those screen-based systems were high. I mean, when I got an Echo Show, I think the very first one, and, simple things like I can see all the timers I've set. That is legit useful because that was one of the places that these voice assistants were really good, but it was frustrating to like, oh, it would be really nice if I could see all these things. And so I think, the place they erred is in, I think, taking them too far out of what was useful. It's like, oh, now you're going to watch YouTube videos while you cook dinner. I was like, only if I don't want to keep my fingers, because I'm cutting something off if I'm paying attention to a video while I'm cutting vegetables.
Yeah, people do have like TVs in their kitchen and stuff, but I never really got the appeal of that. No, I can't wait. We've talked before about how all of those mysterious upgrades to video cameras in HomeKit Secure Video seem to suggest that Apple suddenly cares about video cameras, which seems to suggest Apple's going to make a video camera. And Gurman has said he's squirrely about it. He said, I think that his latest report was an indoor video camera, which I am much less interested in than an outdoor video camera, but also a doorbell, like a ring-like thing, which is that's your outdoor something. My house is so small, I do not need a doorbell, but I do have a video camera outside. I have the Akara, which is HomeKit Secure Video and has benefited greatly from the new features. So that, I really want an event. Look, Apple events are about storytelling. Otherwise, you just do a press release. Storytelling is part of the reason you do a whole event, and Apple will invite people somewhere and they'll have like press demos and they will have a video and they will be able to tell their story. And if they have a new home strategy and it includes some products that don't exist yet, which means you can't use suppress sales of the existing ones because they don't exist, to lay out their whole strategy and say, we're doing these now and coming later this year, we'll have these other products, and have a more expansive view of Apple's home strategy. Like, I want to hear them. If they're going to do this, they need to tell that story. And I hope they do it.
To your earlier point about John Turnus being a good tie-in for that, it's also a good opportunity for him to put his stamp on something, right? Like to say, okay, here's an event. Would Tim have done this event? Who knows? But like it feels fresh and new when it's a different CEO coming out and being like, hey, I've got this exciting new initiative to tell you all about, right? Like that's a good moment for you as a CEO in the early days of your leadership, is to be able to come out and say, here's a bunch of new products. And you're like, whoa, this guy, clearly he built all these products himself in the last 2 months.
Yeah. He's just a busy guy.
He's good.
He's just he's killing it. All right, well, we will keep an eye on that. Let's talk about the Apple upgrade program, which Apple has announced. It is a new Apple upgrade program. It is not to be confused with the original upgrade program that you're listening to right now. It replaces the existing iPhone upgrade program with one that covers not just the iPhone, but the Mac, the iPad, the Apple Watch. Um, Turns it from a loan into a lease.
Yeah.
You have been an iPhone upgrade program user for many, many
Since the
years.
beginning, I think. I
Now,
think I was there first year.
so you wrote a piece on Six Colors about like all your concerns about what it
Yeah.
might be. Now that we know what Apple's doing here, this is a deal with Klarna, although it's really kind of branded as Apple, and the idea is that you are going to choose a length and you get an amount to pay, and then at the end you either turn in the device or you buy out the rest of the lease. What are you thinking now, especially about? I mean, it goes beyond the iPhone, and we should talk about that. But let's start with just sort of compared to the product that they were selling, which was the iPhone upgrade program that you've been on, and that is now going to be ending next year. How, what strikes you about what's different about Apple's approach here?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a few things here, right? There's the mechanics of it, and then there's some stuff that's more vibe based. I think if you sit down and look at the numbers are comparable. You look at the I looked at my iPhone. I've got a 17 Pro. It's just the base level 256. For the last year on the iPhone upgrade program, I've been paying I think $57 a month, which is it's divided by 24 or whatever. But you can upgrade after 12. All right, under the new program, if I go and look at like, okay, I want to buy the same exact phone I've got now, how much is it going to cost me to lease that? It's a little bit cheaper. It's like I want to say $40 or so for a 12-year lease. This is one of the or a 12 month lease. This is one of the interesting facts is like nominally the price you're paying over the course of time is divided up into like 24 payments, I think. But if in a 12-month lease, you're still only paying only part of the value of the phone, essentially. So $46 is the 12-month lease now through the Apple upgrade program. Now, that's cheaper, but in large part, that's because the previous iPhone upgrade program bundled Apple Care with it. So for that $57, I was paying $11 more per month, but I got Apple Care Plus, I believe, with theft and loss. That's now, they also, Apple tweaked the prices of its Apple Care stuff. So that's now $14. So if you wanted to get Apple Care on top of that, setting aside one thing I'll talk about in a second, then you're going to pay more. Not a lot more, but a little more. Obviously, there's also Apple Care One, which they introduced late last year, early this year, which essentially is your monthly thing that covers several different devices. So you could, if you have multiple Apple devices, maybe you would save some money if you have Apple Care in all of them. Like many people, I think including you, I do not tend to be an Apple Care subscriber. I got it with the phone, which was nice. I don't think I have ever used it in the decade, right? This is insurance. This is what happens. I paid for that because I did not really have a choice to not pay for it, and I never used it. So yeah, I could save money on this plan. That would be nice. But now we enter into a couple other things that I think are tricky. The upgrade path is a question. I mean, so they say you can upgrade at the end of your term of your lease. So that's 12 months for this particular one. You can upgrade sooner with a fee. There is, like, on the current system, which is a loan, not a lease, you can sort of buy out your loan. There's questions of what are the additional fees. I poked around a little bit to see if I could find the nitty gritty details of this, and I had not been able to find like a place that just laid out all of the like, here is the terms of the Apple upgrade program. I'm sure it's in there, but you might have to go further down the process to get there. And so that is kind of one question for me, is there are a couple places that allude to fees that you might have to pay if you want to do things like terminate your lease early. And that is a question to me. And as always with these kinds of programs, you always kind of wonder, well, how are the people making their money, right? That was always a question with, in the case of the previous iPhone upgrade program, this was a loan underwritten by Citizens Bank. And you essentially, like, they lent you money to buy a phone, but it was your phone. In this case, you are essentially renting a phone. It may be to a certain degree a distinction without a difference, but I think there is slightly something there because you are more, I think, beholden to the terms of this deal potentially. And I think this is where the question of Klarna comes in, because I think this is more of a vibes thing. It's like, I don't associate anything great with Klarna.
Right.
mainly because one of the things they're known for are those buy now, pay later ideas, right? Where it's like you pay something and sort of finance it over the short term. And in theory, it's all cheap. It's a zero interest loan, but you got to read the fine print. And if you miss plans or miss payments, you potentially rack up some costs. So I think I have some questions about that before I would sort of step in and immediately be like, okay, this is a great substitute. I think Apple is still working hard to try and make sure that the Apple brand promise is still delivered by this. But
right.
It's tricky because there is a different partner. And I think the thing about Citizens having like a bank involved was like, well, it's a bank, I don't need to be like, how does the bank make its money? I know how banks make their money. And I felt like in that case, the loan was very well managed. I never really had a problem with any of them. I had some problems like mechanically with the upgrade program. Every once in a while, you'd run into something weird where it's like, hey, you didn't ship your phone back to us. And I was like, yes, I did. But I worked, it all got worked out. And so I guess the question is, in the future, if something goes wrong, am I going to have to talk to Apple or am I going to have to talk to Klarna? Because I know which of those I'd rather do. And it has me a little wary of this program. I'm not going to say it's a bad deal because I think anybody who's run the numbers has been like, it's very comparable. But I do have some questions about the implementation. And my biggest experience with the iPhone upgrade program over the course of it was that it started very rough and it got better over time. So part of me is a little worried about the prospect of being a guinea pig with an unknown partner in the mix. Because if something does go wrong, how difficult is it going to be for me to untangle all of that? Because time has a value as well. So, like I said, some of this is very vibes based, where it's like I feel slightly uneasy of it or just wary about it. And I'm not quite ready to dive right in. But I do appreciate that it is not sort of overtly a like much worse deal from what I can tell.
It's just different.
It's different, yeah.
And you're right, vibes is part of it. I think that all the analysis I've seen from people who kind of run the numbers are saying, look, and this is true of literally everything that's ever been the case with even buying outright a device, which is if you put in the work, you buy it yourself, you've got the money to buy it up front, and then you use it, and then at that perfect moment where you want to get something new, you sell it to someone.
Sure.
You can it will be better off than using a program like this. But the thing is, you have to have the money up front and you have to put in the effort to sell it. And I know for a lot of people, this is why does the Apple trade-in not pay off as well as some other trade-ins do? And the answer is because you're giving money away for convenience, because then you just do it as part of your Apple transaction when you buy your new phone, is give them your old phone and they buy it back and they give you credit and it's easy. And like, could you sell that phone for more on Craigslist or eBay or to a friend or from a third party buyback service that has slightly better rates than Apple's? Yes, you could, but most people are not going to because it's just more effort. And so it's a little bit more to do it this way. But most people, I think the argument goes, are going to be either not going to look or are going to say that I'm not going to go down that path. It's just too complicated. It does sound that ultimately, I think a lot of our listeners, especially, the reason that a program like this appeals, and I think it's why it appeals to you, is you get a new phone every year.
Yep.
And the part of that is you give your old phone back.
Right.
And get a new phone.
You don't have to worry. And there is something, like you said, like the selling it comes with a cost because there's an idea that like, what happens if you've slightly dinged up your phone, right? Like how much damage is it before Apple will accept it back versus how much damage is it before somebody else who wants to buy that phone will be like, it's a little too dinged up for me. Right. And there is a cost there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all part of the challenge. But I think like the appeal of this, because I know the other part of this is I know that a lot of people are like, well, I just buy it every year. And that's what I do. I just buy a phone. But it's not just, I don't have the money in the bank. That is part of it for some people. But it's what I think you get out of it, which is it is reliability.
Yes.
That for some people who are looking at their budgets, they like the idea of spending a fixed amount that they know they're going to be spending for the next year, not that every September they're going to get a bill for $1,000 and something, and that there's value in saying I would rather not, and it's essentially interest free, right? So it's not anything other than I just want to spread this out so it's the same number every month, because then my expenses are flat every month.
Yeah. And there are still alternatives. If you have the Apple Card, you can finance it over the Apple Card on sort of the same plan where you kind of just pay in installments, but you're essentially buying outright, but like paying in installments. Slightly different.
Right.
You don't get the same upgrade like treadmill from that because you aren't immediately like, it's not part of a program. You're still going to have to trade it back into Apple, but like, you know, you can do that with Apple, right? When you buy a new phone from Apple,
and
they're
so
like, you want to trade one in.
Like the Apple Card, this is all U.S. only, by the way.
Yes.
It's just part of it too. It's just financial stuff is so restrictive, and it obviously it shows the limits of Apple's powers, that they, at least initially, there are only certain places. This is their number one market, and so they're going to choose it. But also, it's their home market, and they're more comfortable with the regulations and all of that. But obviously, also not, according to Gurman, not so comfortable that they wanted to set up their own bank or whatever, right? Like they really like having financial partners.
Yeah, they briefly had like a financial company that they kind of created, and then they wound it down. I think because they decided it was more trouble than it's worth, and I can't blame them for that. Yeah. I mean,
well, it goes to the whole Tim Cook doctrine of like you need to control the stuff that is inherent and inimical to your business. And you know what? I think they decided this finance stuff is not. It's just we don't need to be the ones who own this. It's like we could just do we want to spread it over 4 payments? Let's just let Klarna do that. We don't need to do that. Or do we need a financial backer? And so Klarna here is not a silent partner, but it is, vibes aside, it is basically just the engine powering this from a financial and regulatory perspective. And I think that's reasonable. Now we got to expand this. This also covers the Mac, the iPad, the Apple Watch, the big ticket items, Vision Pro. The big ticket items are covered in this as well. And this is I want to read a couple of quotes from Mark Gurman's take on this, because I thought we're out of the rumor roundup now, but like Gurman,
that I thought were cynical, maybe. Look, I don't know. It's hard.
Gurman as a pundit is interesting, and then also the worldview of Bloomberg, right, and all financial journalism is fascinating because they often have a very different worldview than somebody who's more of a technology person. But he said that Apple could end up turning its hardware business into, quote, potentially the largest subscription provider in history, and ultimately Apple is changing the psychology of the purchase. Now, I think this is interesting because on one level, I actually kind of like where he's going here, where prices are going up. Prices have gone up and are about to go up and may go up for a while. Everything is more expensive than it used to be. And there are a lot of people in Apple's ecosystem who are, in fact, I think a lot of our listeners, and we are like this too, where the way we live our lives is we go from Apple device to Apple device to Apple device, right?
Yep.
And this is sort of Apple's opportunity to say, why don't you not buy products anymore? Why don't you just get them and add them to your bill? And if you think about it, they already got Apple One. They've got Apple Care One. Now they're going to add this program that gives you the ability to basically say, send me, like we said about the iPhone program, send me a monthly bill. I know what it's going to be. Yeah. And when I reach the point where I want a new whatever, and they all have terms, right? So if you say, well, what if I want to keep that MacBook Air for 3 years? Well, at a certain point, you either upgrade it or you just pay it off.
Buy it out, yeah. And
then you have it. So there is a decision point, but it could be 24 or 36 months out. Like, I'm somebody who just buys this stuff up front, so it's not for me, but I kind of see the appeal on one level of like, if you're just always going to get a new Mac every couple years and a new iPhone every year, having just put it on my bill, my Apple Tithe that is now whatever it is a month, but you just have the Apple stuff and it's an understandable number that hits your credit card every month. I get it.
I mean, I knew people, as I'm sure you have, who, always leased cars, right? They're like, oh,
yes,
I'm gonna get
which
a
I've
car
also
lease
never done.
I've never done that either. But it's like I'm gonna get a car for 3 years. Then I'm gonna get a new car. And
right, some people are going to be that, and some people are going to be the me thing which is I'm going to buy a car and then I'm going to keep that car a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I get the appeal. I mean, if you're a person who is likes cars and like doesn't want to deal with like ongoing maintenance as
Yeah.
cars age and break down, it's like,
Always
just
wants
get
a
a
new
new
car.
car. Um, and it's kind of interesting. I mean, one of Gurman's points was also about sort of the marketing of it, and I just was, in our went to the iPhone page and it says right up front. So from this iPhone 17 Pro from $10.99 or $45.79 a month for 24 months. Next line, lease from $31.99 for 24 months with Apple Upgrade. And it's like, boy, right? Like I see those numbers and I'm like, well, why is it so much cheaper? I could pay $32 a month and get this great iPhone, this top of the line iPhone. Like, there's a lot of work going into that. And I think, it's also nice for Apple because not just in terms of services revenue, but in terms of smoothing their revenue a bit, right? They get these giant quarters when the new iPhone comes out. And you're like,
Yeah.
well, what if we could take some of that income and divide it up so that every month we get paid a little bit?
Just spread it out.
There's something to that from their financial perspective.
And we should say there are also carrier deals. So there are if you're thinking about this, your carrier also has deals. They're different, and you may prefer to work with Apple than work with your carrier because there's probably greater trust. Although I think I said on Mac Break last week that like I've been on AT&T since it was Singular.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I've been on AT&T since it was AT&T before it was Singular,
right.
and then it became Singular, and then it became AT&T.
I just missed the Singular years.
And I only have one cell phone service that gives me bars at my house, and it's AT&T. So I'm never leaving AT&T. I'm just never leaving AT&T. And yet I never, ever, ever look at their offers. And like, I know the cell phone companies are evil and bad. I know, but I probably am not saving money I could save because they're going to give me the same offer that they'd give to retain a customer who might churn. And I know I'm never going to churn.
Right.
And yet, people should look. I guess what I'm saying is I know you don't like your carrier, or you like them less than Apple, maybe, but also a thing to consider. There are lots of companies that would like to, in exchange for a commitment, get a monthly fee from you.
Yeah,
I guess is what I'm really saying.
Yeah,
absolutely. But beyond the phone, though, I think like the Mac, it gets really interesting. The Mac, the iPad, the Apple Watch, where you could just say, I always want to have an Apple Watch. I always want it to be relatively new. Do I want to go through, it's back to convenience again, the trouble of buying an Apple Watch and then trying to gauge when its battery is bad? And do I want to buy full price a new Apple Watch? Or do I want to commit to an Apple Watch for 2 years or 3 years and then know that when it's over, it goes away and I commit to a new one for 2 or 3 years? I can see the appeal.
I do. I mean, and I think, look, it's not an exact analogy, but like, if you are lucky enough or privileged enough to be in the position to be able to choose, do I want to rent this apartment or buy a house? There are different considerations that go into that. And I think, obviously, more considerations in the case of renting versus buying a house. But yeah, there is something to be said for if you're renting a place, it's like, well, you can terminate your lease and walk away and rent someplace else generally. Whereas if you got a house, well, now you got to sell a house. It changes the dynamics. The prices, change. You have to worry about things like financing. If you miss a payment, right, like that is an issue as well. Like, and that's where companies like Klarna are, and probably to a certain extent, the Citizens One loan that you got, like they want or assume some number of people will miss payments and they will make some money on those people, whether it's via interest or via fees or whatever. And so, if you are somebody who feels like, well, I can very confidently make $45 a month payments, then maybe this is a good plan for you. I don't know. I on the face of it, I feel like there's no reason I shouldn't be willing to just switch to this program, but I also feel like I'm just not sure.
Like you said, the vibes are weird. And then, I mean, because you're already in the iPhone upgrade program, you've got a year to think about it before they wind down this program. Right?
Well, I mean, I have to change now because if I'm going to get a new phone this fall,
right,
I have to get out. And so this is the other part of this equation, right? Like, prices are getting, you mentioned this before, but prices are getting higher. B, Apple is poised to unveil the most expensive iPhone that it has ever made.
Yes.
And by a lot. And so there's an interesting question there, right? Do you want to pay $2,000+ for a brand new phone.
Or would you rather just
Would you
pay
rather pay-
$70 a month?
Exactly. And I $7 a month seems like a lot better deal.
Seems like a lot.
But where I always think to myself, and I'm sure you do too, where's the catch?
Yeah.
And I can't find it, and that makes me warier. Like, if I know what the catch is, I feel like, okay, I'm fully informed, and I'll go in like knowing that's going to be the issue, and I know that it's not going to be an issue for me, or I'll know how to avoid it. But when I can't tell what the catch is, I'm like, well, am I going to get got, right? Like, am I going to miss something in the fine print and realize, when a year comes around, it's like, oh, well, you owe us this money, or, you can't do this. And so, I had a lot of concerns when this report first came out, because we also saw a similar report at the same time that said, like, Apple's building these features in that can restrict the use of a phone. Now, they came out very publicly, I noted, including with attributed statements to people saying, we're not going to do that for this program. And I think that was real smart to get in front of that, because, there was a lot of concern around it.
Quite rightly. But yeah,
absolutely.
If they're building those features, they're for somebody else in some other market that is probably going to be pretty ugly. Yeah, I mean, good news is you've got, I guess 6 weeks to figure it out. The bad news is, I think for Apple, is you're taking people out of a program and you're making them reconsider their options, and they're not always going to throw down with you in your new option. You're giving everybody a chance to rethink it. I think it's a great opportunity for the people who are in that program and people who have thought about that program to think, how do I want to approach this, especially as these prices go up? Does this work better for me? Because, look, I'm somebody who pays my credit card off every month, right? But I use a credit card, but I pay it off every month, which means other than a credit card fee, annual fee for some of the cards that we've got, I'm not ever hitting their interest rate.
Yeah.
And these are zero interest rate loans, or their leases at basically the same kind of terms. So if you're responsible and do what you need to do, it's actually your financial benefit, because instead of, you could take the money that you're not paying up front and have it earn interest or whatever elsewhere at a rate that, because it's in your pocket instead of being in their pocket. So you could make that argument, but there's a lot of catches, and you got to think about it, and you got to be smart about it. And a lot of these companies, this goes back to your vibes, a lot of these companies make their bank on people who fall through those cracks, people who don't make the payments.
Yeah, or out over their skis, or aren't great at managing their money. And I think this is the struggle with it, is it feels gross at times, but it is also the world that we live in. So it's hard to
the world is gross. So
great. The world is gross at times. So
amazing.
Yeah, there we are.
Just a little heartwarming moment there from your upgrade program.
Anyway,
the good one.
I got 6 weeks. I'm definitely going to be thinking about this. I think it's going to be a big question, especially when I see the price tag on that folding phone, because I am interested in the folding phone.
Yeah.
And am I going to be able to cough up however many thousands of dollars it will be, or am I going to think to myself, well, it's just so much easier if I only have to pay them $70 a month or whatever? And I think it's a tough question there.
We'll have to see. This episode of Upgrade is brought to you by Backblaze. Here's the thing that comes up a lot. You need a file. Sometimes you worked on it during a meeting. It's a draft. You edit on the road, and it's not where you thought you'd find it. iCloud keeps your active files in sync. It doesn't keep a full year of every version of every file you've touched. Backblaze Computer Backup does. You install it once, it backs up your entire Mac in the background, your files, your external drives, no storage limits. If you need something from 6 weeks ago, you open Backblaze, search, and download it. It's useful for disasters, more useful for the everyday situations nobody plans for. I've used this feature, right? I use Backblaze primarily because I want to have a backup in case something very bad happens to my computer and my backup that I have at home, because if my house burns down, I lose all of those things, but I will still have my data on Backblaze. But I've also used that thing where it's like, where's that file? I can't find it in Time Machine. I can't find it in my backup that I do every day. And then you can retrieve it from the cloud from Backblaze. Really, really good extra little bit of security and safety for your data. If you can get, I need the one from July 18th. It's like, there it is. It backed up that night. And now I can pull it back out of there and download it. Upgrade listeners will get 20% off. Start your free 15-day trial. No credit card required at backblaze.com/upgrade with code upgrade20. Thank you to Backblaze for supporting Upgrade and all of Relay.
Money, 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 who has all the money? Money, 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 who has all the money? Money, 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 who has has all the money? It's Apple.
Apple results time. Everybody's favorite time of the quarter.
So glad
we get
that
to hear
even
the song.
when I'm not on my show, I can still hear the dulcet tones of Lex Friedman, my
That's
good friend
right.
and
No,
co-host.
you can't escape Lex because he made the greatest earworm he'll ever make, which is the Apple Money song. Lyrics by me, by the way, but there are not many lyrics.
I see. Yeah, that
one
Grammy
word mostly.
nomination is going to be well deserved.
It's my poetry. It's like that's my slam poetry is the Apple Money poetry. Yet another record quarter, Dan. Well, now I feel like you and I because we do this
okay.
usually
Chart
on
talk.
YouTube every quarter. We didn't do it this time, so here it is. Yet another record quarter, Dan. 109.4 billion, continuing their streak. Will we ever have a quarter under 100 billion from Apple again? I don't know.
Not unless something goes real wrong,
Real,
I think.
yeah, real bad. That would be bad for John Turnus. Up 16% year over year. It's the third straight quarter of double-digit year-over-year revenue growth. I don't know if anybody saw that coming. Their ninth straight quarter of year-over-year growth. They made $29.8 billion in profit, and their gross margins were above 50%, although a lot of that was driven, a few points of it, by tariff refunds, which then they promised the president they would invest back in America. We're good. We promise we'll be good. Third straight quarter of strong growth in China, and iPhone up 22%, Mac up 29%, services up 12%, wearables up 6%, and the iPad down 6%. But again, just an incredibly strong quarter of performance from Apple here.
Yeah, like we said, 100 billion, excuse me. Now we're talking about real money, has quickly become just the default for Apple for revenue. And that's astounding because it was not that long ago that we were talking about, when is 100 billion going to be just a normal quarter? And that was like less than a year ago, Jason.
Yeah.
I think we were talking
now
about
here we
that.
are.
And so, somebody pointed out that Tim, it was 100 and they made like 108 billion
Yes.
in revenue the first year Tim was CEO.
Yeah, and they made that
in a quarter.
Which in a non-holiday quarter.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, yeah, we're going into a couple big quarters coming up, so it feels like watching that graph change is going to be kind of fascinating. There's a lot to unpack here. That growth, particularly, I think in was the iPhone and the Mac.
Yeah.
22 and 29% growth, I think, respectively.
Year over year. And they specifically called out the MacBook Pro and the MacBook Neo as strong performers, and they said the Neo has been especially popular and strongly suggested that they are struggling to meet demand for the Neo. And that I've got a great line here about the Mac and the iPhone because those numbers, right, are huge. And they asked, and they're supply constrained, like they can't make enough. They could have sold more, but they are having these problems. And we know that some of that is which we'll talk about in a second, is about the RAM shortages and issues with volume at TSMC for the systems on a chip.
Advanced nodes.
But this is what, we've gone from the legacy nodes. Now the legacy nodes are not the problem. It's the advanced nodes that are the problem. Tim Cook said, the root cause of this is not a supply issue, because everybody's like, the problem is supply. And he's like, it's a demand forecast issue. Our bad, he says. The iPhone and the Mac are both doing remarkably better than we thought they would do. And we had high expectations. It wasn't that our expectations were low. We really tried, everybody. But as you can see, these are extraordinary numbers, and the supply chain just has less flexibility in it than normal. We've been pulling supply ahead. At some point, there's a limit to that. And so we've got a quarter that we're going to be scrambling on the supply side, essentially. This isn't a partner or supplier issue. The issue is an incredibly strong iPhone and Mac product cycle that has yielded a demand beyond our expectations. And he's right. Like the iPhone 17 cycle has been way up, and I think beyond, because up isn't the problem, up beyond what Apple thought it would be up. And the MacBook Neo doing well, I'm sure Apple thought it would do well. It did way more than even they expected it would do. This is also Tim Cook not throwing TSMC under the bus, right?
It's a double-barreled problem, right? It is high demand and supply constraint.
And the way he phrased it, I think the less flexibility line is so key there, because I think what he's implying, and I think this is true, is if you miss with your expectations, you're basically saying I didn't order enough, right? I thought we would sell 1,000. We sold 2,000. I didn't. I only ordered 1,000. So what do we? How do we? So that's part of it. But the other part of it is, right, perhaps in another era, TSMC would have more flexibility to increase their orders.
Yes.
But they don't
That's
because
exactly
they
right.
are maxed out everywhere with AI chips and stuff in addition to Apple. So it's not TSMC's fault is what he's saying. But we have to say one of the consequences of it, TSMC having all of these other clients, is that they can't turn the dial on Apple's order, and Apple under-ordered, so
Yeah,
Apple has to pay for it.
If you, as you said, if you forecast you're going to sell 1,000 and you sell 2,000, you're in trouble. If you can't then go to your supplier and be like, hey, how much should we pay you for another 1,000? And they're just like, we can't do it. We do not have the
We're at
space to
capacity.
make these things. Then you're really in trouble. And so
Yeah.
I'm kind of fascinated by this because some of this. So I don't know your read on this, but they talk a little bit about the memory shortages and stuff like that. Obviously, a lot of this is getting driven by AI related stuff, right? There's all the RAM Armageddon stuff is driven by that. But I'm also trying to wonder how much of the demand for stuff is AI driven, right? Certainly for higher end stuff like the MacBook Pro, and they talked about demand on that, or the Mac Studio or the Mac Mini, there is definitely some demand from people using them for AI workflows, right? We know people who bought a ton of Mac Minis and they started taking models off sale, right? And it is fascinating to watch a singular inflection point that has shifted and affected both supply and demand, because the demand is so high that the supply can't keep up. And so they're two sides of the same coin to a certain degree. And it means that they are kind of like a wave amplification thing where you get two waves that intersect and it makes the wave even bigger. You're dealing with this thing that, as Cook has called it, 100-year flood. It just doesn't happen very often. So it is fascinating to see what things have driven demand and why they're driving demand and why supply is not able to keep up. And Apple is usually a company that, as they said, they do a really good job of forecasting these things. The iPhone one in particular, I am especially fascinated by, because it wouldn't seem to me that there is a clear driver there, right? There's not it's this one thing that these products do that no old products could do, and therefore people want to buy them to do X, right? There's a lot of good things in this product line. I think that's what's doing it, is the 17's a really good phone.
It is a strong.
Really is.
I mean, at the time we knew it, right? As reviewers, we were like, "Wow, iPhone 17, 17 Pro, this is a really good product line." Other than people being like, "Oh no, the iPhone Air is no good." Well, it hasn't hurt them at all. But pulling all of those Pro features down into the 17, and then that aluminum body and the orange one and all, it didn't feel at the time. It felt like a really solid upgrade, but I felt it was almost like real ones know that this is a good year for the iPhone. Turns out real ones knew, everybody else knew too.
And that's just it. 30% increase, right? That is beyond the this is a good product.
Not a wholesale redesign of the product line, right?
Or a killer new feature, right? There's not one killer new feature in this. And so I kind of looked at that and thinking to myself, are people buying iPhones to chain them together and use them in AI workflows? What is going on?
iPhone Air, it's going to be great for it. Just everybody get on it.
A stack of them.
Yeah, it's just it is, and I remember talking about this about the Neo when there are all those stories about they're not going to how many Neos can they make, and I do wonder how many choices they make that are make more of this one. Gurman wrote at one point that Apple's pushing people toward the low end MacBook Pro instead of the MacBook Air right now for back to school and stuff. And it's well, it's kind of an inventory issue, isn't it? And I know that if you've only got a finite number of chips, you can make decisions like which product will you produce.
Yep.
And so that's fascinating. But the Neo's success is a great example of this, and maybe the MacBook Pro too, where Apple, I'm fascinated by the fact that Apple's decision making generally seems pretty careful and knowledgeable, and they don't miss, and they don't lack confidence in their own products.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They don't sandbag, and they don't. They're not modest about it. Oh, well, it's a nice product.
No,
maybe people
they
won't
knew
know.
the Neo. I'm sure people at Apple believe the Neo was going to be a huge hit. I'm fascinated by the fact that they still undersold
Yes.
it. And what does that say about their decision making, and will it change in the future? And similarly, the iPhone 17, like, I'm sure they thought it was great, but clearly they had no idea that there would be a sales surge on the 17, because it really isn't. Like you said, it's better in lots of ways. We were talking in the previous segment about like expensive phones coming and about buying programs. And I've got to be honest, the more I read about that, the more I think, little orange iPhone 17 Pro, I love you. I'm never going to let you go.
Yeah.
Like, on one level, it's like, maybe I'll just keep this phone for a while because I love it so much. So it's strong. I just am fascinated by the fact that even Apple, a company that does not lack confidence, didn't understand how much people were going to want to buy these products. It's fascinating.
It also casts into sort of fascinating, like, retrospect now, the price raising decisions, because somewhere in there they're looking at the data and they're saying the Neo has done so well that even if we bump the price by $100 and we will lose some customers because of that, it will not matter because we are selling so many. Like, I think they allowed them more elasticity in their pricing because they could look at these results and be like, look, this stuff is selling like hotcakes. And if we charge a little bit more, yeah, some people will say that's too rich for my blood, but a lot of them won't. And that's a really interesting position to be in for them, because they are not a company that, the Neo we all talked about, this is not a company that plays in this part of the market. And they walked in and immediately were like, we are selling this like his bananas, right? And then they jacked the price a little bit after like 6 months, less than 6 months. Just a fascinating ability. I was drawn, so you do a bunch of charts over at Six Colors.
I do.
A couple of them grabbed my attention. I thought the one that really has kind of a fascinating look to it is that your product versus services total profit.
Ah, yes.
It's Nessie beneath the waves. I always think of it, because the services has this nice gradual ramp, and then the product is this spiky, like, dorsal fins of sharks. And you can kind of look at it over a long period and think to yourself, okay, what are the trends? What are we seeing? Right? Like, fascinating to me that in this most recent quarter, the services actually took a little bit of a dip.
It
But
did.
the product line, like, and we're used to seeing those peaks get higher and higher. And that peak from the last holiday quarter is high. Like, look at that, way up there. But then when it came back down, it's still pretty high. That's the thing that got me, is it's like, it's still in the, low 30s for total profit of
and then
$30
this one
billion.
went up when they usually go down in Q3. Although some of that's the tariffs, right?
Some of it's
the tariffs. Tariff refunds pushed that up by I forget 1 or 2 points essentially.
Yeah. But it's still high, and
the services being soft, because the services was down sequentially.
Yeah,
which hasn't happened in like 4 years. I looked 3 or 4 years. It's up year over year, but it was down sequentially. And what Apple will tell you, they've got lots of excuses.
Sure.
I think foreign exchange headwinds.
Yeah,
I love it. Love a headwind.
Love a headwind
Is probably a big part of it. I enjoyed how they tried to throw a lot of chum in the water, or maybe it's chaff. What is it in a submarine movie? They got to blow they blow the chaff out the bag so that the torpedo doesn't hit them. So they're like, the one that made me laugh the most is they're like, well, last year we released F1 and it made a lot of money.
Yes.
And this year we didn't release a movie. And so that's one reason why services might be a little softer. And I'm like, really? I mean,
they're like, it was one of the most profitable movies last year. Like,
yeah.
But even then, it only made a few $100 million, probably.
Okay. And then they also tried to blame regulations from mean old judges and regulators that made them share things and not have
that one got me
links,
the most.
link outs.
Yeah, that one got me the
link
most,
outs.
right? Because Kevin Perek was talking, and he mentioned, like, look at all this. They have hit us so. This is in the same section. We had the theatrical release of F1, one of the highest grossing sports films in history, and this year we didn't have a theatrical release. We also had some factors on the App Store. Like, we saw headwinds in mobile gaming. Keep in mind, we also made some changes to App Store business model in certain countries. And in the U.S., we do continue to operate under a court ruling impacting link-out transactions. But we're pleased the Supreme Court will hear our appeal. Then there's a beat. And then he says, despite this, the App Store did set a June quarter revenue record.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what are you complaining about?
Yeah,
That
it's soft.
got me.
but I know. I did the one note that sounded like it had the ring of truth about it is headwinds in mobile gaming.
Yeah,
that
'cause
they
that's
saw
kinda random. Yeah,
They saw some issues with mobile gaming. There's huge App Store revenue ramifications for mobile gaming, and that there were issues with mobile gaming. But still, the App Store set a quarter record. So
I mean, I love that they
yeah.
pitch it like, well, we persevered. We
Yeah.
persevered. We buckled
Somehow.
down, and we still set a record instead of
mean
we
old
just
judge.
kept collecting the money.
allowed people to link to the internet from their apps, and despite
And
that,
it didn't hurt our business. Is the
nevertheless, we persisted.
answer. Yeah, I thought that was
Bravo.
pretty rich for if you'll excuse the expression.
Yeah.
so-
Well, everything Apple does is pretty rich these days, so
Pretty
that's
rich.
fair. That's fair. Oh, we talked about systems on chips, but RAM obviously is the other thing that's being driven by the AI boom, and RAM shortages are causing problems. And I thought Tim Cook made it very clear that, and this is one of the reasons that Apple stock actually took a tumble afterward, even though they had all these successes, because he basically said, in addition to the having to scramble on the supplier side for systems on chips for advanced nodes, basically memory, the prices keep going up. He said they went up. We said they'd go up more last time, and they did. Next time they're going to go up more, and they're going to keep going up for the foreseeable future. And he said, I think most chillingly, that Apple has been pulling stuff from its carryover inventory. Basically, they've got stuff on hand that they've been using to make it make a little more sense financially, but we're going to run out of that stuff.
Yeah, because at some point they have everything. Yeah, and they've sold everything. Yeah, right. That is a challenge. We have not seen the end of this demand issue because, they talked about the carry-in inventory being one of the things that offset the problems, these quarters, and they say like, okay, we had that last quarter and the quarter before, we benefited from that, but there's only a certain amount of time that stuff you have in the warehouse stays there, because eventually you will sell it all, and then you will not have as much carry-in inventory, or at least as much carry-in inventory that you paid last quarter's prices for.
Right.
That's the key, is like, we bought this, it's arbitrage, or like we bought this 6 months ago, and the RAM prices were not that bad, but eventually we will sell that. We will book the revenue from it, and now we're gonna have to start selling all the stuff that we paid more for. And now that's the stuff. That's why we raised prices when we did, right? Because they're trying to sort of soften that blow. It's like, well, we paid more for it, so let's sell it for more. But that's a difficult treadmill too, right? Because I have to assume the pricing changes were done with some foresight here, and thinking about like, right, we can weather this storm if it's 6 months, but if it's like, we don't know, a year, 2 years, might be more, like, you presumably raise the prices enough so that you don't have to raise them again.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
it may
the
also
challenge.
be they raised it maybe enough so that the next time they do a new version of something, they'll raise it again.
Yeah, they do
could
have
be.
a little bit of possibility there, and I think we're all waiting to see what those iPhone prices look like in the fall.
He also Cook did an oblique, and this was his last earnings call. This is his 90th and final earnings call. He did a little oblique reference to basically there are only three memory manufacturers. Yes. And it would be nice if there were more, which is the Apple trying to
China
get
RAM.
a RAM provider in China into the mix, at least temporarily, as a stopgap here, and how that has all sorts of political fallout. There are lots of senators who want to make hay on how you're funding the Communist Party and you're going to destroy American RAM manufacturing by doing this. And it's like, my opinion is that if you get the government to say, we'll give you 2 years, I don't think it does anything other than maybe reduce the harm of all this. But I guess if you're concerned that the other RAM manufacturers will not have as much leverage over the entire market, I guess that's a government decision to make. Are you more concerned about Apple struggling to release products, or are you more concerned with a couple years of good revenue going to a Chinese RAM manufacturer that's tied in with the government there? I don't know. I guess that's for the U.S. government to decide, but he did at least obliquely reference the thing that's been reported in lots of places that Apple's trying. Yeah. I still feel like in the end, this comes down to, is there a quid pro quo here? Is this where Tim Cook calls on Donald Trump and says, look, we're putting a lot of money into the U.S. We're committed to the U.S. We're committed to building more RAM factories in the U.S.
Yeah.
But right now we are bleeding. Help us.
Yeah.
And I've seen people say, yeah, but it's not going to happen because the senators are really grumpy about it, and Chuck Schumer and Ted Cruz are angry about it, and it's like, I in a normal functioning U.S. government, I would agree that might be an issue, but I don't know. I kind of feel like if Donald Trump was like, fine, then who's going to stop him?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I look at some of this and think to myself, they've tried a lot of things. Like, I also noted they had one of Ben Wrights. He's asked them about the fabs in Arizona. And this was Tim came back and be like, look, it's not the suppliers. Like, we just have too much. And
and we're spending money in Arizona.
Yeah, my read between the lines on that is like, look, he says we source over 100 million components this year out of Arizona. I think they are basically getting as much as they can out of those, right? Yeah. Like, those are kind of limited. They're, like you said,
and they're spinning
small
up
fabs.
They're building new fabs there and in Colorado too. And
yeah, and
Apple's investing
so
whatever
much.
They said $30 billion in U.S. manufacturing, and they talked about that a lot, and that's great. But I feel like part of their argument is we are invested in the future of manufacturing. He said, Cook actually said, look, we're doing this thing in Houston where we're bringing in people from our suppliers and other suppliers and showing them how they're trying to set up a thing where they're literally like, we're going to show you how we manufacture things because we want to invest in American manufacturing. And he said the goal is over the long term to increase the capacity of American companies and American factories to do this production work, but it will take time. And so the argument is, while we're doing that, it would sure be nice if we could buy some RAM from over here in China to save us from the current, temporary peril that we're in. The counter argument would be, well, yeah, but you're enabling, if there's a big glut, the American factories are going to be in trouble in the future. Maybe you shouldn't do that.
Right. And just as your point, you said $30 billion. That was just their deal with Broadcom. They're
You're right.
$600 billion overall.
$600 billion for the American manufacturing program. You're
Plus
right.
those
Broadcom
tariff
alone.
refunds. So enjoy that.
Broadcom alone. Finally, for this, I just had a favorite thing that Tim Cook said that I thought was funny. And I put it in my piece at 6 colors, but I want to read it here. Somebody asked about the price increases, right? You and I have talked about this. Mike and I have talked about it on the show. It's like, if you're Apple, how do you choose? What's your methodology for choosing to raise the Apple TV by that, or raise the iPad mini by that, and raise the MacBook Air by that? And somebody asked him. And so Cook said, in terms of our philosophy on dollars or percentages, we look at units, revenue, and margin, and then come to a business judgment as to how to handle that. And so it's not a mathematical formula that gets us to a specific result, or just looking at one dimension of that. We look at all 3 dimensions and think about it over the long term instead of a 90-day clock. Hopefully that helps. And I'm like, I felt like Morpheus was explaining the Matrix to me. A little bit. Think of it 3-dimensionally. You've been thinking, get out of your 2-dimensional perspective. Or it's like Captain Kirk realizing that Khan is not going to go up and down, that he's thinking in 2 dimensions. It's that Tim Cook is playing 3D chess out here.
3D chess, yeah. I laughed at that, and I also thought, I don't know if you thought to like this as well, Jason, but I was like, it's Tim's last call, and it seems fitting that everything is about the supply chain. Like,
right?
Send him off to play the hits, right? This is Tim Cook's opportunity. He's like, this is a pitch right down the middle for me. This is my jam. And if you ask John Turnus about anything, he'll just smile and nod and say 2 lines of platitudes, which I thought was also my favorite moment.
Turnus was on the call, and he didn't say a word. And then as we're getting toward the end, somebody is like, hey, John, how do you feel about all this? And he's like, hey, everybody, great to be here. I believe everything that Tim says is great, and I'll see you next time. Bye. And it's like,
I thought that was an amazing moment, because there's this hesitation, right? And you're like sitting there going like, well, they must have been prepared for someone to ask him something. But
he was there.
Also, I had that moment of they're going to be like, well, John's not really taking questions. I was like, we can't do that. He's going to be
John's
the CEO.
In the bathroom
he
right
needs
now.
to be able to assist things. Yeah. But I thought it was a great moment of John Turnus being like, me? Yeah. I
And
it's
he
that
did
Bryan
not detract
Cranston
from
gif.
Tim's moment, right?
No,
I thought that was
obviously
important.
not. He's very diplomatic. I am fascinated because this answered a question that we had last time, which is, will John Turnus be on the calls? And the answer seems to be yes.
Yeah,
He's
he
going
said.
to take the Tim. Yeah, like they said, basically in the future, he will be taking these calls.
'Cause let's be clear, Steve Jobs was not always on the calls.
It's not. Yeah, and I don't blame him.
I remember the thrill.
Yeah, when Steve,
because I have also
Steve's
been.
here too. Yeah.
I don't want to say I've done 90 analyst calls, but I've done a lot. It's approaching that. And Tim used to run the analyst call.
Yeah.
And I remember the thrill when you get on the call and they'd be like, Steve Jobs is here and he wants to talk to you. And it's like, whoa, what's that guy going to do now?
He wants to talk to me? Yeah.
Well, I mean, all of us collectively.
Yeah, Jason, I will say, I think I'm gonna toot my own horn a little bit, which is, I think back when I was at macuser.com, or a blog at Macworld, I think I started live blogging these financial calls because generally Macworld would have like a story about it.
Yeah.
But like I started live blogging them, and I think that was fairly early on in people like actually transcribing them. And I remember that too, like being like, Steve's here. And I felt like once Steve would show up a few times, I feel like that's when everybody else kind of also got into live blogging.
Like
it because like, oh, it's not just a boring financial call. Steve Jobs is here.
Yeah.
He's doing a tight 10 on God knows
whatever he's mad about this month. Yeah. Absolutely.
Fun stuff. I also want to call out my other favorite line from this, which made me laugh as I was walking to the drugstore at the beach, and I'm listening on my AirPods.
This is how messed up we are, by the way, everybody. Is like, for
us,
this is like with Tim Cook leaving, it's like a major cast member of a favorite TV show leaving, because it's like all of these stupid financial analysts are like characters in the drama. You get to know them over time. And here they're all saying goodbye to Tim. And then, yes, you end up in this deranged situation where you're on vacation near the beach listening to an earnings
chuckling
call.
At somebody asking
and
for
laughing.
Some more color. Yeah, it was Kevin Parekh doing the overview and saying wearables, home, and accessory revenue was $7.9 billion, up 6% year over year, driven by strength in wearables and accessories. And I had a moment thinking, isn't that the whole category? Like, that's driven by strength in everything. I forgot that home was there. I forgot home was a thing in that moment, because I thought I heard him say wearables and accessory was up, driven by strength in wearables and accessories, and I was like, what?
No, that's their little teaser, the little foreshadowing for their home announcements.
Yeah,
what of home?
Lurking, like the Death Star rising over Scar.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my Star Wars analogy.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I knew we'd get some Star Wars in there eventually.
Oh boy.
This episode is also brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform designed to help you stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or scaling your business, Squarespace gives you everything you need to claim your domain, showcase your offerings with a professional website, grow your brand, and get paid all in one place. I know so many people, tech people, who love Squarespace. You don't have to be technical to build the site, which is great. And even tech people will build using Squarespace because it's so easy. So it's really, I mean, I know Stephen Hackett uses it as one of his like core kind of, oh, you need me to build a website for this thing. I know exactly what to do. And then he can use Squarespace, and then he can hand that site off to them because it's easy to maintain a Squarespace site. There's just so many reasons why if you're building a site to do just about anything, you can use Squarespace and you will be very happy. For example, get discovered fast with integrated SEO tools. SEO, search engine optimization, folks. Nobody wants to build a beautiful website and nobody sees it. Squarespace has its websites optimized to be indexed with all the things you need for your site to be found on Google, which is kind of important. If you're worried about AI, guess what? Squarespace will let you use Blueprint AI, which is an AI-enhanced website builder, to let you quickly and easily build a site just for your business. You input basic information, and they will use their intelligence and their templates to build a website for you. That is pretty sweet. Go to squarespace.com/upgrade. You get a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code UPGRADE. Easy to remember. You get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/upgrade, and code UPGRADE to get 10% off your first purchase and show your support for this podcast. Thank you to Squarespace for supporting Upgrade and all of Relay. Time now for Ask Upgrade. Whoa.
I brought my own laser.
It's a blaster.
It was a blaster. I had to grab it off my shelf, but there it is.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you. Real lasers flying. Or blaster
Real,
bolts.
quote unquote real lasers.
In Star Wars, are those... Is the implication those are basically energy beams? Or do they have
They're not
like
quite
little
like-
things that fly?
No, there's little. It's like Tibanna gas. That's little pellets of energy. I don't know. It's not like phasers where like a phaser beam shoots out, right?
Yeah.
And like you see like little packets of energy. I'm sure I have a technical manual over here on
Okay.
my shelf somewhere that
All right.
explains.
And is it a wave or a particle? Nobody really knows
It's kinda
anyway.
Either one.
Nate writes in and says, I've been holding onto my iPhone 13 mini for a while, but I feel like it may be finally time to let it go before prices increase. Jason, as a former lover of the mini, I mean, I still love it. I just don't have it anymore. Will the Air give the same feeling of a small phone, or am I better off with an Orange Pro that has smaller overall dimensions for the screen size? John also writes in, I'm someone who's clinging desperately to my iPhone 13 mini. I'd love to know if I'm going to be completely SOL for an iPhone that could do Siri AI that isn't huge. I've tried larger phones and I just find that I cannot use any of them single-handed. And Joel wrote in and said, I got an iPhone 13 mini because I was getting RSI pain from trying to stretch and use a 12 Pro one-handed. Since the mini phones aren't an option anymore, I'm seriously considering going to the 17 Pro Max so that it's so ridiculously large that one-handed use isn't an option. Do you think that'll work? So we have, this is
coming out of the
iPhone
woodwork, Jason.
13 mini Roundup.
John
And
Moltz
I still
isn't in
have
here
my
anywhere?
iPhone 13
I don't
mini.
know.
In blue. It's beautiful, but I don't use it anymore. A bunch of questions. I love Joel saying maybe I should just get the largest phone possible
Just
because
train
then I
myself
can't
out
use
of
it
it.
one-handed.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. That might be good. You could also get the 17 Plus, which would be cheaper,
Yeah.
but also
true.
huge. Because, I mean, ergonomics are weird, right? Like, I didn't even realize how I type until I took video of my hands typing, and I was like, I do what? Because you
Yeah.
just don't even think about it. And small changes can completely change how you use a device. So, like, if you can't use it one-handed, I think that's actually a pretty clever option to, like, make it so you can't, and then you won't. And then you won't hurt your hand, which is what was happening to Joel. For the others, I mean, in terms of the current products that are out there, I do love my 17 Pro. I was going to mention the Air. The Air is thin and light, which is nice, but it's actually wider than the 17
Yeah.
Pro.
Yeah.
So I think depending on your sensitivity, there's some things about the Air I think are really nice. In fact, it might even be good for Joel because it is wider. So it's nice and light in your pocket. But then when you take it out, it's like you're using, I mean, it's appreciably larger than the 17 Pro. It feels wider to me. I use it ergonomically very differently. I do a lot of hold it in one hand, poke with the other hand with that. Whereas on my iPhone 17 Pro, I do a lot more kind of like hold it and kind of graze with my thumb, which is how Joel got RSI.
Yeah.
So maybe.
The chat has pointed out there is not a 17 Plus because the Air.
Oh, is there
replaced
not?
it.
Oh, because
Yeah.
it's the Air.
Yeah.
Well, you got
Yeah,
a 16
so
plus.
you
Then.
get
Try
16
that out.
plus
No,
or
Pro Max.
That's
Joel
pretty good.
knows.
Yeah.
Joel knows. So I'm gonna do. Dan, are you ready for my big brain, my galaxy brain idea?
Yeah. Please open up that big brain.
For Nate, John, Joel, galaxy brain idea here. Folding iPhone.
I believe you mean Galaxy Brain S.
Yeah, it could be Galaxy Fold S
Sorry.
brain. Yeah, in fact, because we now have an idea of what screen Apple's going to use because Samsung released announced a
love
phone
it.
that's got
Love
the same
Samsung.
dimensions as the ones that everybody
Classic.
3D printed because it's probably the same. Because they literally make the
They made the
screen,
panel,
so
yeah.
they get to go first. It's not ideal for these guys. May not want this, but what I will say about it is, and it's going to be wide, but it's not going to be tall. And it's going to be thick, right? Because it's a folding thing.
Yeah.
But what I will say is it will be smaller in your pocket. And it will be small when you hold it like a phone, right? Like that's one of the issues that the Samsung phone has that the Apple phone is going to have to deal with, which is Apple has, as iPhone mini users know very well, for a while now, apps have just assumed that iPhones are tall. And the iPhone mini, sometimes you'd use an app and you're like, I can't
Uh-oh.
tap that button. It's not on the screen because the phone is not that as big as the app thinks it is. And Apple's going to have to deal with that. But the folded up version of the screen, it will be wide, so maybe not ideal for Joel, but it will be small in footprint. And then you can open it up and you got a little like almost iPad mini that you can use two-handed, which is also a nice ergonomic thing. I know it's going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
right,
going to be
guys.
for everybody.
For the price of only 3 iPhone 13 minis, you can get a small
Yeah.
phone again.
Just buy 3 of them and tape them together and see how that feels.
I look forward to Apple announcing this as the most ergonomic iPhone they've ever built.
I mean, I love my Pro Max, but if we're just talking ergonomics here, it's worth holding an iPhone Air in your hand if you haven't, because what do you like about the Mini? Is it the size? Is it the lightness? You may find a different set of trade-offs is interesting, that it's this light, thin phone and it's got a big screen. Maybe that's a nicer feature. I do like my iPhone 17 Pro. The idea of going and getting a Pro Max is very interesting in terms of just making it not an option to use it one-handed for Joel. And I don't know, like, I am kidding, but I'm also not kidding. I wonder, in the long run, if the folding phone will actually be something that appeals to fans of smaller phones, because when it's folded, it's small.
Yeah,
maybe.
My good pal John Moltz is a longtime mini phone stan, and I think if it were not for the price tag, I think would seriously consider it before the.
I got a payment plan for him that he should look into. But anyway, I don't know. Look, as somebody who always liked the little phone, and as somebody who loves my iPad as my like primary personal Apple device. Like, I sit at my desk and I use a Mac, right? But like when I'm not sitting at my desk, the iPad is primarily what I'm using. I'm not a phone primary. I'm really an iPad primary person. The idea that my phone could be my iPad, and I don't know if this will work because it's going to be a small iPad, right? But like that idea really intrigues me, that I may actually be dead center at the target for this product, because it would give me a phone that kind of folds up nice and little, but then it opens up and it's an iPad, gives me an iPad kind of experience.
Depends how iPad-y it is,
It really does. I mean, I know it's not going to do like multi-windows and stuff. It'll do split screen at most, but like, I don't know. Maybe that's enough for me. Maybe it's not. I honestly don't know. The last 2 trips I've taken, by the way, I did iPad only. Again, it's been a little while. That worked pretty well. I brought my keyboard both times so I could go into like multi-window. iPad OS 27, when you're in multi-window mode with a keyboard attached, it's practically like you're using a Mac. I got the windows up. I got the menu bar. It's pretty wild. I was able to do a podcast with local recording. That worked pretty well. Like it was. I don't know, supposedly these are short trips, and I didn't need to take my laptop, so I didn't bring it because it adds a bunch. That's the thing about having a MacBook Pro, is it does add a lot of weight.
Right.
So
I have an 11-inch iPad Pro and a 13-inch MacBook Air, and the difference between them is often so close that I think to myself, maybe I'll just bring my MacBook.
Yeah, but that's the thing is I'm never going to travel without my iPad. Like, I'm never going to take a trip with only a laptop. It's never going to happen. I always, because I am so iPad forward. But what if it was a phone? Anyway, we'll find out. Lorenzo wrote in and said, I was listening to you talk about Siri AI and how useful it is in getting data from messages. But where I live in the Netherlands, most people use WhatsApp. Will Siri AI be able to index third-party apps? Most of my useful data is in that app. Not like we can use Siri AI anytime soon here on iPhone, but I was wondering anyway. Yeah, we should mention Siri AI will work fine in the EU on the Mac. Because the Mac is not a gatekeeper platform. So you will be able to do it there. I think it is per app. You have to be indexed by Spotlight, essentially. And so that's up to WhatsApp, I think, to do that. I would think they would, though.
I assume they would. I mean, it's meta, so God only knows
never
sometimes. But the general, I mean, if people are using it and they get annoyed at WhatsApp for not supporting it, I think WhatsApp will support it. That's my theory. But I think they'll probably support it. Most people want to be relevant and implement Apple's latest features, right? They want to not look like they're lagging behind. So I imagine I would be very surprised if there is not an update to WhatsApp, day one release of 27. That's like, and use it with Siri AI.
Yeah.
Because Why wouldn't you?
It's useful. So we were in Denver over the weekend, seeing my it's Lauren's brother and his family, and they've got 2 little kids who are adorable. And we got to their house at like 1 a.m. We flew late on Thursday night, got in at 1 a.m. And I thought this is a good opportunity because we visited them a bunch of times, and they have a smart door lock with a code. So we're going to let ourselves at 1 a.m. We're letting ourselves in with the code. And I asked Siri AI, what's the code at Mike and Kaylee's house? And it pulled a text message from Thanksgiving of 2025. So last year, I think, which with the code. And, then you tap and it's got the code. It's got their address in that message, which is tappable. So I can just add it to Apple Maps and navigate there. And Lauren pointed out that that's not the code they sent to her. So she's like, aha, take that, Siri AI. They must have changed the code. But then when we told this story to them, they're like, oh, that code works too. That other code also works. So either way,
Siri knew.
But that's the stuff, right? Like it's stuff like that where you're like, I know that they sent us the code. It was probably in messages. I said Mike and Kaylee to give it just enough information that they would, and then it said, I'm searching your mail. Now I'm searching your messages. And it's like, oh, I found it. Here it is. There's the code. And that was the code. So it's good. It doesn't always work, but being able to plumb the depths of your mail and messages alone plus other apps is going to be great.
It is pretty killer when it works. I mean, not perfect, but I find myself turning to it for things that I would have turned to ChatGPT or Claude for. So.
Oh yeah, for that stuff, for the basic knowledge lookup stuff.
Yeah,
it works.
I had this moment the other day. I was walking down the hill to pick up my kid from daycare, and I looked over as I'm looking down the hill, and you can see the Prudential Center, which is one of the tallest buildings in Boston, from where I was walking down the hill. And I just kind of idly was thinking, I wonder how far away it is. I can see it from here. And I was walking with my AirPods in, and I just asked, hey, how far away is the Prudential Center from where I am right now? And it's like, oh, it's 3.1 miles away or something. I was like, that seems a little far. I said, how far is it as the crow flies? And it gave me a short, as the crow flies, it's 2.4 miles or something. Yeah. And I was like, that was a wild interaction I just had with a robot walking down the hill. It didn't even break my stride. I just talked to it on my AirPods. It was very, very cool.
Yeah. Crows are very efficient, you see.
Crows are very efficient. Straight line.
They're very efficient. All right, well, that brings us to the end of this show. But before we go, I wanted to point out you can hear me and Dan talking about stuff on Fridays in a podcast by becoming a Six Colors member at sixcolors.com/subscribe. People like it.
Yeah, it's a big show.
We don't have notes.
No.
Sometimes I'm doing laundry.
It's chill. It's just like chill. A hangout session.
Yeah, we're just what happened this week? What are we doing? Dan hosts Clockwise here at Relay.
I do.
And The Rebound, as mentioned, with John Moltz and Lex Friedman.
Name a more iconic trio. I'll wait.
Yeah. Reboundcast.com. And thanks to Lex for the Apple Money song, by the way, as always. And if you missed Mike and you missed my interactions with Mike, I have great news for you. I will be a guest on the Connected program later this week, with Mike and Steven, filling in for Federico. So check that out. I will have less to say about AI than Federico does.
Everybody take one seat to the left and be on a different podcast.
It seems like that. Well, I was on Clockwise last week, and I think I'm on Clockwise next week. So
yeah, congratulations. This is vacation time. So
it is summer of fun.
Summer of
fun. Anyway, you can send feedback here. Follow up. Questions, Snell Talk, upgradefeedback.com is the place to do that. Thank you to our members who support us with Upgrade Plus. This week we are going to be talking about the XT Inc. weird e-readers that are getting better and better all the time. Get upgradeplus.com. Find us on YouTube by searching for Upgrade Podcast. Thanks once again to our sponsors, Factor, Squarespace, and Backblaze. But most of all, thanks to you for listening. Until we meet again, Dan, say goodbye.
Goodbye, Jason.